go. Let me set the context. So this is recorded. It's going to go on YouTube so that we get to model for other people what coaching is like and share this experience with others in the world that maybe don't have experience with coaching. And we may touch on things that are sensitive for you or you'd like to remain personal, and that's okay. So if we do, I'd prefer you dig into that rather than censor yourself because it's going to go online. So we don't have to post it if we hit those kinds of things. Okay.
Okay. Well, I'm a very open person.
Even better.
And that's kind of my work and my scope of work. So there isn't too much that's off limits.
Perfect. I just want to be clear. Every once in a while, someone mentions something about maybe somewhere they worked or someone they engaged with, and they're like, that's not complete yet. So I don't want that out there. So I just want to encourage you that it's your time, your space, and we're going to play in whatever comes up. And I really like kind of going with the flow of things. So we'll look at what the issues are, if there are any, what solutions we can come up with, what action items we can co-design, and then we'll move kind of into possibility, depending on where you're at.
Okay, that sounds great.
Sound good?
Yeah, I just didn't know where to start with your question.
Yeah,
So
I know. I didn't exactly set a context either. So
like, no,
I was just
2020. Yeah.
Right. So, I was going to ask you another question, but so, so where are you? Give me the kind of outline of where you're at, and I'll guide you through that. And have you ever had coaching before, or are you new to this? Because you're a coach too, right?
I'm not a coach.
Oh, okay.
What
do you do?
I'm a social media manager and a copywriter. And for the last 12 years, I've been a makeup artist. And I have a feeling that I'm going to be entering the world of coaching because when I talk to people or when they absorb my content, they either assume I'm a coach or they tell me that I should be one. That seems to be a common theme in what I do because when I started doing makeup, I was, so like to give you some context, in the early 2000s, I was an alternative model, and that was around the same time, you're gonna laugh at this reference, as MySpace. So it was kind of this first.
I was just talking about MySpace the other day.
I miss MySpace so much. But it was the first really significant social media platform. And I was doing this alternative modeling, they wanted tattooed, pierced, dyed hair models, and I fit that aesthetic. And I was doing makeup on, for myself, and I started trying to have fun with it and play with it. And then other people started asking me to do it. And smash cut to a few years later, I ventured out and had my own business as a makeup artist. And I did primarily bridal makeup, but I also did makeup for photo shoots. I did makeup for TV. But what I really started noticing when I would walk into like a bride's room or a hotel room is that I had a vast age range of women and girls. And I'd sit these little girls down, like the flower girls or the junior bridesmaids, and I'd do their makeup, and it was fun for them because they got to look like a big girl and they got to play and wear sparkles, and it was so fun. And then I'd get like a woman in her early 20s in the chair, and I'd say, okay, what are we doing for makeup today? And she'd go, well, what is everybody else doing? And then we'd get the mother of the bride in the chair, and she'd say, well, I hope you can do something about these wrinkles, or, it's probably, hard for you because, my skin isn't this or that. And then I'd get grandma in the chair and she'd say, make me look 20 pounds thinner and 10 years younger and all this. And it was like, what I realized was at a certain point, this fun, joyful, luxurious thing went from being fun and playful to being high pressure and intimidating. And it really made me feel a sense of righteous anger for women, that we've had that joy stolen from us, and that this ritual that is kind of uniquely feminine was turned into an obligation. It made me really, really angry. And so my primary social media outlet is Instagram. And I was using my Instagram as an online makeup portfolio, essentially. If you go back into my Instagram, it's makeup, 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 makeup. It's all professional photos. And it was a way for me to post my work visually. But if you go into those captions, I'm writing about women loving themselves. I'm writing about women no longer apologizing. I'm writing about the interruption that I created during those real quick makeup consults where, you know, women are saying, well, you know, I hope you can fix this mess. And me saying like, well, you know, I was this far away from your face and I didn't see anything wrong with you. So who told you there was something wrong with you? And like, I'm the help. This is your space and your time to take care of yourself during a really stressful day. This should be relaxing. So what do you want to do today? And their answer was always something to the tune of like, well, my husband hates red lipstick. Or, well, I read in Good Housekeeping that, you know, women over 40 shouldn't wear sparkly eyeshadow. It was always what someone else wanted for them. And so I started really inserting that into a lot of my work. And then I started doing more hair and makeup for boudoir photography. And boudoir photography is, again, supposed to be this like hashtag empowering thing. And I was seeing that same pressure and that same shame, or I was seeing people that I knew could benefit from having that experience of connecting with their own sensuality. And I'd be like, you should do a boudoir session. It would be wonderful for you. And they'd say, well, I gotta tone up first. Or, you know, I have to lose 10 pounds, or, you know, I got to lose the baby weight, or, you know, whatever. So it was really frustrating, but it was also this really great opportunity to connect. So I tell people all the time, like, I like makeup, but I don't love it. But I love women. And I love interrupting that conditioning. And I love interrupting those conversations they're having with themselves and getting them to examine it, because a lot of it, it's so conditioned that it's on autopilot. And it's really limiting, and it really steals a lot of joy from us. So when the pandemic hit, I just felt like, oh my God, like my life's work has sort of been taken from me. But I started exploring, okay, so I'm writing anyway, I'm speaking anyway, I'm kind of counseling or coaching or something anyway. So what can I do? That's a set of skills that has nothing to do with makeup unless I choose it to be. So what else can I do with this set of skills? And so I just started writing and talking about women and about what it's like for us to live and what it's like for me, and the ways that we are tricked and conditioned and punished for existing and forced to be made small and all these kinds of things. And people started coming to me and asking me to manage their social media or help them write things for their website, or you know, to give them makeup lessons over Zoom or something like that. And the hour that we would spend in a Zoom call would be like, oh my God, like I didn't, like the makeup part was fun, but like you told me this or that. Like I had a client tell me like, oh, you're a Trojan horse. Like, you know, like you came in with like, I'm going to help you do makeup. But once you kind of got into my space, you started telling me things about myself that, you know, I didn't intend to know, or I didn't know I needed to know. So that's kind of where, that's the very long version of where I'm at right now.
Got it. No, I appreciate that. I appreciate you sharing your journey and sharing the different transitions you've gone through with that, from makeup artist, from an alternative model on MySpace to makeup artist, to working with brides and working with weddings, and recognizing how I say all the time to in the world, to people, to my clients, all kinds of things, that how we do one thing is how we do everything. Mm-hmm. And you were able to witness how common it is for women to identify makeup with their value and how the world sees them, and to make themselves look in a very specific way. And you, having gone through the journey of being a model yourself and having experienced that side of it, and then be kind of guiding them through that process, sounds perfect that you ended up in that way. And then moving into social media makes complete sense, because now you're helping people perfect their image mm-hmm. in what is right for them. Yeah. And getting their message out there in a way that is healthy. So all of your journey has been around, what's your image? Who are you? Mm-hmm. Whether it was in yourself and learning that in yourself, and then witnessing others, and now guiding others in how they package and promote their business. So it makes perfect sense to me how you've ended up in all the things that you've ended up in.
Yeah, totally.
That's really beautiful.
Yeah. And it was a journey that it was like, I didn't walk in with any intent in the beginning. Like right. I thought I was going to do makeup for model photography, and I was going to get to play with makeup, and that was going to be fun and cute. And you know, when you're in your early 20s, a lot of times you're not really thinking of, you know, the longevity of something or where it's going to take you. I just, you know, in the beginning, it was kind of a shallow thing, and it's become this thing that's so much bigger than me, and is so, like, my heart is so in it. So that's how our heart gets into things like that, when it's bigger than us. Yeah. Because it has nothing to do with the ego anymore, and everything to do with a higher purpose. Yeah. Yeah, totally.
So within all that, what would you like coaching around? How can I support you?
Well, I think right now what I'm dealing with is, there's a couple things I'm dealing with. Number one, when I first started doing makeup, just like anybody going into a new thing that they're really passionate about, I remember experiencing lots of imposter syndrome. And after a while, I mean, it was just something I wanted so badly that I would push myself and walk through it. And eventually it got to a point of confidence and a lack of ego where I could have feedback and understand that it wasn't about me. It was about, you know, the person's preferences, and that, you know, what I do is art, not math. So it's subjective, and that there's no right or wrong. Like, it's so much about listening and about intuition. And so coming into the world of social media, where things, yes, they're artistic and creative and subjective, but they're also technical. And some of my clients are pretty savvy. They've been doing this stuff themselves, and they're at a point where they're successful enough where they need to hand it off to someone else, but they've been using these, you know, software programs and stuff like that, that I might not be very experienced with, or I haven't heard of them at all. So I have to go in and learn how to do these things, learn these like software programs or apps or whatever, and I have to learn it quickly so that I can get them what they need. And I feel a need to present that confidently, because what they're asking me to do when they hire me is, I need you to take care of me, and I need you to help me spread my message to the public so that I can sustain myself. And that feels really big, because I used to joke all the time, you know, the thing that really got me over like the like confidence hill was, it's just makeup. If you don't like it, we can take it off. If you don't like it, I can fix it. And I used to make this joke, like, that's why I don't cut hair. Well, sometimes social media is like cutting hair because if you put something out there that, you know, looks bad, you know, that can destroy somebody in extreme circumstances. And the other thing is that I really wrestle with, and I really don't like the word mindset. I don't like a lot of the buzzwords that are around like personal development, because I feel like they're they're really oversimplified, but I don't really have a better term for it, but I absolutely have a poverty mindset. I grew up under really rough circumstances. I and I talk about it a lot, like on my own social media and with my own stuff, and I think that's why I can connect with people the way I do. But so I grew up, both of my parents are drug addicts. My father was really, really abusive, and at 15, I left home. So I was homeless from the time I was 15 until I was 17. I was emancipated by the state. I went to 6 different high schools. I don't have any extended family. And then when I was 20, I became a mom. And so I was a really, really young mom. And my husband was an alcoholic. So I had 2 children with him, and I left him, and I got into a relationship that was very abusive. And through circumstances out of my control, we shall say, I had another child with this person. And so the systemic pathological abuse that occurred made me completely dependent on this person. So I really went from trying to survive to trying to survive to trying to survive. And when I started choosing myself, things changed. And I can see that in my life, I have these, I call them like brushes with affluence. Like when I was really in my flow state with my makeup business, I was making a ton of money, doing what I loved. I wasn't working very much. And I was really proud of what I did. And I was proud of the connections I made. And because of the impacts that I made on the people I worked with, word spread really easily. People really enjoyed what I did. And so it was very sustaining. And I had a lot of really amazing opportunities that came with that. But that being said, I feel like I'm always just trying to survive. I don't make really big, lofty goals for myself because I don't think I can make them. When they happen to me, I believe I deserve that. You know, I don't, good things, if a good thing happens to me, I don't feel like, oh, maybe I don't deserve this. I'm like, oh, this is great, but I don't know how it happened, and I don't know how to keep it going. So it's like, I remember a couple years ago, and I know this is a long-winded answer, and I apologize.
No, don't apologize at all. It's all good information. I'll pick out and tease out things in a moment, but I want you to finish your thoughts.
Okay, all right, good. So for example, I had a client who, when I met her, she was a server and she was a model just starting out. And I did makeup for a photo shoot that was literally, no one was paid. It was just for trade. But we became friends, and we became friends over several years, in and out of contact. And she called me randomly and said, hey, I'm going to go to New York, and I'm wondering if you can give me a makeup lesson because I want my makeup to look good while I'm on my trip. And I said, yeah, sure, no problem. Well, she shows up and she is like dripping in designer clothes, and she's bringing in like several bags worth of really expensive makeup. And she sits down and she said, my mother just died. I just inherited, life insurance policy money and the inheritance that my mother set aside for me. My mother was a senior executive VP for this very large, well-known corporation. Like, this was something like I had no idea about this friend that I had. She came into a ton of money and she was grieving, and she was going on a trip, and she wanted to feel good. And so I sat down with her and I gave her this lesson, and we're talking as we're doing it because we're friends and we're connecting. And she looks in the mirror after I do her makeup and she goes, I don't think I can replicate this. What if I just take you to New York with me? And I'm like, okay. And she's like, well, what do you need? I was like, well, I mean, I need a plane ticket and a place to stay. And she goes, okay, great. What's your day rate? And I was like, it's this many $100s. She goes, okay. And she pulls out her phone and she's like, is Cash App okay? And I'm like, yeah. And in my head, I'm excited, but I'm not self-sabotaging or anything. You know what I mean? And I went out there and I had the most luxurious experience of my life. I stayed in the best hotels. I ate the best food. I went to the best places. I saw live opera. You know what I mean? It was like, and I just remember being like, this is a beautiful, magical experience. But I know it wasn't a fluke. I know it wasn't a fluke because those situations have happened to me way too many times. There's something that's trying to magnetize itself to me, and it'll do it, but it'll do it every once in a while. And it was like 3 months after that, I remember calling my landlord and being like, hey, rent's gonna be late. I remember calling the electric company and being like, yo, I need to go on a payment plan. You know what I mean? And it's like I'll get this like, and it's during those times I'm not wildly spending money. I'm not being reckless. I just, it's almost like for a while I thought that those circumstances were coming to me by happenstance. And then after that trip, I was like, okay, like most people never experience even one of these in their life. And I get them over and over again. I don't know how to intentionally create them. So now I'm in this business where like I'm catching on. Like this month has gone from 0 to 60. I went from having one client to like I had so many people this week that I'm late getting people their stuff because I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. And I don't want to let anybody down. And I'm also like excited, but there's just a part of me that's still a homeless kid that's just trying to survive. Like I can't look big picture. I'm looking for like, how do these immediate bills get paid? And it's almost like I can't dream big, and like the universe keeps coming to me being like, yes, you can. Yes, you can. Like, here's what this feels like. Here's what this looks like. Here's how you can do this. And it's always in moments where, I'm
so let me pause you. Let me pause you right there.
Yeah.
I want you to lean into that. So why the tears? Around specifically, you can do this.
Because I've always had to because I've had long stretches of time where nobody had my back. The people that were supposed to always have my back didn't have my back. My parents, my husband, my partner, they didn't have my back. And my work and my job and my passion is about having people's back. And so when I have those moments where I feel like something bigger than me is like, I got your back, you can do this. It's it feels like a love I'm gonna lose. It feels like I can't hold on to it. Like I'm at the mercy of whatever that is. And I appreciate it, and I know that I'm deserving of it. I think a lot of people that are raised the way that I'm raised, like they don't believe they deserve anything. And I think that's my saving grace. I think that's why I'm not in jail or dead.
I hear you. And I'm going to relate to you for a second and be with you in this, because I was raised the same. And when we come from those kinds of backgrounds, my mother was an addict and a dealer. And so when we're raised in that kind of really toxic, really traumatic environment, we learn to do a couple different things. Usually our EQ is really high because we learn who's safe and who's not. And we learn to read people really, really well because we need to know where the danger is, because they can flip on a dime when it comes to drugs. So we understand people at an incredibly high level. That's number one. Mm-hmm. The second thing is when you're in business and when you're doing things, people will gravitate to you because they feel that. They know you get them. And they will look for you. So this is why you've had successes, because you get people and you get women and you understand the shame that can be underneath things that hold people back. You can relate to that. And that feels safe and comforting for people. It feels like love, because that is love. Because you are able to accept people right at their core. It has nothing to do with the makeup they wear, the clothes that they wear, the money that they have. Yeah. None of that matters. And you know that on a very deep level, and people feel that, even if they don't have words for it. The thing that happens is when you're really in that and you're getting the response back from people and you're like, I just want to support, and I'm going to follow the things that allow me to do that, and I'm going to learn them more. Eventually you get to a spot where you start to get busy and the universe supports you back and reflects back to you everything you've put out there. So every time you've had that kind of wow moment and that exhilaration of being in flow, that's because that's what you originally put out there. That's you coming back to you.
Yeah. That makes sense.
So that's what you've done for so many people. And
no.
And when you ride it for a certain amount of time, you have a limit, just like you have a limit for what you can take in the toxic realm. When we come from that upbringing, we have a really high threshold for pain. We have a really high threshold for chaos. We have a really high threshold for other people's emotion. When it comes to us really succeeding and things going smooth, it's harder to take that in.
Because then you have to lose.
It's not so much, yes, that's a piece of it, but we're just not used to it.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't feel normal.
Yeah.
We're waiting for the other shoe to drop because that's what always happened in the past.
Yeah.
Someone always let us down. Someone always left. And it was gone. And we had to pick up the pieces yet again and survive. And so when that's your pattern, you're always going back on. Can I ask how old you are?
37.
Oh, me too. Hello, mirror. So 37, you've had 37 years of experience with this thought process. It's going to take some time.
Right.
Even though you've been working on it, and I can hear it and I can see it, you've been working on it. And you're trying to go, okay, I've had these experiences. You've gotten to the point where you've realized, so this isn't just a coincidence. This isn't just a few nice people doing things and having my back. There's something greater at play here, but I don't know how to call that in. I don't know how to manifest that. I don't know what those pieces are yet. So what you're seeing is behind the veil of life. You're seeing that your life isn't happening to you. You're creating it, and you're going, okay, I know I'm doing something here, but what are those pieces? Mm-hmm. How can I create a structure, especially working in social media and doing social media management and working with tech tools? I'm sure there's a part of you that's like, how can I break this down like an app and go, how can I do this over and over again so that I don't have to worry about my bills, so that I have busy work, so that or not busy work, but so that I'm busy with my clients, I love what I'm doing, and I'm constantly following the inspiration over obligation.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I feel like I had gotten it down to, I don't know, I reflect back. I almost don't want to say like I was a makeup artist, but I find myself reflecting back on my time as a makeup artist often, because it was a process over a series of years. But yes, it was creative, and yes, it was intuitive, and yes, it was connective. But those pieces that you're talking about, I had gotten them down to a science. You know, like someone asked to hire me, And I said, yes, great, I'm available. Here is my contract and my information packet. And inside of that that contract was my boundaries. It was, you're going to pay me this deposit. You're not going to know.
Hold on.
Oh, go ahead.
Do you have a contract for social media marketing?
No.
How
Not
come?
yet. Because it's so new. Because
how long have you been doing it?
I've only been doing it for a few months. Like,
gotcha.
and it sort of happened again. I don't want to. I almost said like it happened to me. But yeah, I've been doing my own social media for, since I started being a makeup artist, since before I started being a makeup artist, and people liked my writing, and so they'd say like, can I hire you to write this or that? So it's hard for me to ascertain exactly how long I've been doing what I'm doing, but as far as social media management, I've only been doing it full time since the pandemic hit the US. So not very long at all. And I know how to verbally ask people for stuff, but I don't have anything written like I did when I was a makeup artist. And it was very like, I felt very secure handing that over and saying like, this is my boundaries. And the higher I raised my expectations, the less people argued with me and the less people haggled me and the less people, it was just, I don't know, it was work that made me feel like I was bulletproof in my purpose. And I'm trying to bring that into what I'm doing now.
So one of the things that happens when your home life was the way that it was and you had the experiences that you've had is there's this belief somewhere along the line that gets developed that is, I have to know the answers and I have to be right and I have to have this on lock, because you had so little control in all of those experiences that you end up searching for control everywhere you can. Not in an overpowering way, just in a way where you feel like you can handle it. Mm-hmm. And when you're learning something new, you're going to bump up against your stuff because you don't know. And you're going to have to say, I don't know, but I'll figure it out. Mm-hmm. And those words kind of choke on their way out because we want to know. Yeah. And we want to have the answer and we want to be confident in that and go, I can do X, Y, Z for you. Which is why the makeup became so great, because you got really confident in it. You had practiced enough, you had done it enough, you had enough clientele and experience that you could now stand in that place of confidence without any surprises for the most part, right?
Right. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So now you're in this
is a safe space for sure.
Yeah. And so now you're in this new place. And I would say the first thing, so let me reflect back some of the pieces that you mentioned. So you mentioned imposter syndrome. Mm-hmm. I've discovered that imposter syndrome is always when you're working on the next level of your growth. Mm-hmm. So you graduated from makeup work. You graduated from being a model. Mm-hmm. Now you're in this social media marketing, which is handling all these accounts for other people, which has to do with image. And you've experienced it yourself personally. You've experienced designing an image for other people when it comes to makeup. And now you're doing it in this space that has a lot of different pieces at play. So you're in this next level. The imposter syndrome is an indicator that you're exactly where you're supposed to be.
That makes sense.
There's nothing wrong with feeling imposter syndrome. Every person that is at the edge of their comfort zone and in their high performance state and in their zone of genius is gonna have some imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Especially when you've had trauma in your background.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
So imposter syndrome, you can thank it and be grateful for it when it's there. When it shows up, you're like, oh shit, I'm totally terrified of screwing this up. And what if they find out I don't know what I'm doing? Oh, it's imposter syndrome. I'm learning something new. I'm leveling up. Awesome. I'm outside of my comfort zone and right at the edges of my capacity. This is great. And then you can turn that judgment that judged the imposter syndrome into curiosity. And once it's in curiosity, that's where everything's possible.
That makes sense. That makes total
So
sense.
that's one. And then the next one is about the learning curve. So just be clear with people. If they tell you a thing that you don't know, just go, I'm really excited to do this for you because this is what I see, and you can talk about what's possible. And then go, at the same time, I haven't experienced this app before and I don't know it. So I'm going to pad the days a little bit that I need to produce that for you. And I'm confident I can do it, but just know I'm figuring it out as I go.
Yeah.
Are you okay with that? And see what they say. If they're not okay with that, they're not your person, because
Right.
they're going to have problems with you making mistakes. And you don't need that kind of client. You
Right.
need somebody that is okay with that. So if they're like, no, I really need someone who knows exactly how to do this, then okay. If you really want to learn that thing, you could go, well, I'm willing to lower it a little because I want to learn this.
Mm-hmm.
Then you could do that. If you're not, if you're really set on where your prices are, then just go, okay, thanks. It was nice to meet with you and good luck. But just be really clear. How does that set with you?
That's pretty well with me. It's interesting because I know this intellectually
Totally.
because I tell this to people all the time. Um, it's part of it's part of what I do is, I have folks that come to me and they're like, yeah, well, all my targeted Facebook ads have these, skinny blonde white women and they're all holding a latte and like that's what I want my stuff to look like because I want to hit my numbers, I want to hit my monthly goal. I'm like, okay, well, but is that who you are? And they're like, well, no, but like I just feel like I can't do it unless I, know how to do it like them. Like I need my 10K month, like meh. And it's like, so I know this because when I can view it from the outside, I'm like, oh, like there's there's nothing wrong with being you, and you're trying to, it's almost like you're trying to broadcast or project that you're not who you are. And so when I caught myself doing what I tell other people they don't have to do, um, I started saying like, oh, okay, well, okay, so you're experiencing imposter syndrome and you know what that feels like because you felt it before. And all it means is that you're learning something new and that you have an opportunity to do what you do best, which is be really vulnerable and honest. So just do that. And so I think when I do that, it's easier. You know what I mean? When I say like, yeah, so I don't know how to do that quite yet, or like I don't have the answer to that. And I'm kind of new at this, so I just need a little bit of hand holding because I want to do this in a way that's the most helpful for you. And everybody's been pretty understanding, but I think there are some times where um, my like flight instinct gets really strong, and it's like, you don't know how to do this, you cannot handle this, this is too much, like cut and run and quit and like go wait tables. Like do a thing
Right.
that even if it makes you miserable and it doesn't meet your needs, at least it's predictable and at least you know what you're dealing with and at least you know that you're like not out of your element. And so it's like my heart and head are like not connecting or something.
Well, what happens is it's two pieces. So I'm going to inject here. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So there's two things that are happening. First of all, you're brilliant. You're very intelligent. You have a high emotional intelligence. So you're going to intellectualize things where you know what to do. You're able to advise other people in it.
Mm-hmm.
But you're still a human being that has her own emotions and her own stuff. So there's going to be those moments that you kind of self-sabotage and you're in it just like you're saying. That's this older piece that will always, always, always show up when you're at the edge of your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
When you're right there about to jump into another expansion of yourself, another version of yourself, that is going to pop back up because that is not something you know. And it wants comfort. That little girl that went through all the things that she went through, she just wants comfort. She just wants to know she's safe and she's good and she can pay for things and there's no surprises, because surprises are not necessarily good things in that world.
Right.
So she's always going to go, no, run or freeze or, fight back, like fight, flight, freeze. It's all those are going to kick in when you're right there at the edge of your comfort zone. And so when it comes to recreating those moments of possibility, I've found, I just love giving numbers to things, but I've found that there's 7 pieces to that. And identifying your relationship to each of them helps you to recreate those scenarios and constantly be in flow. Because you can't stop that voice from coming up, but you can stop it from being in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
And you can go, okay, I hear you. It's kind of like, I see a lot of things in terms of nature, even though I don't hike as much as I would like to, or am in nature as much as I see pictures in my head. So it's kind of like standing at the edge of a cliff, and there's a narrow bridge that goes across that trench into this river. And you have to walk across that bridge to get to the other side. There's no other way around it. But you're literally so terrified that you're going to fall. Your legs feel like weights, and you have to take little tiny steps because it's everything to muster up the courage to take another step. And that's where you are in those moments. You're at that precipice where the bridge is there. Intellectually, the bridge is, I know what to say here. And I'm saying it to myself, but it doesn't stop the fear, because the little girl's like, unsafe, hands down, go away. Because it's unknown, because you don't know. The risk is high. And when you're able to go anyway, even though that fear is still there, that's what risk is. So I think it's 7 things. The first 4, I'm sure you pretty much have on lock, which is gratitude, awareness, curiosity, and play. So those 4, having a healthy relationship with those 4 will help you to be able to switch things pretty quickly. Except when you're in that moment. When you're in that moment, awareness is like, yeah, I'm aware that I'm terrified and not moving. My legs are really, really heavy all of a sudden. I'm curious what it would be like on the other side, but that doesn't create any movement. I want to be playful, but again, my legs are heavy and I'm really terrified of this scenario. And what was my 3rd one? I know these, but for some reason.
And I'm like absorbing so much information from you that I'm like, I wasn't keeping track of it either.
No, you're fine. So, and gratitude. I'm grateful that I made it this far, but I don't know if I can get over it. None of those create action. So they can make you okay with where you stand, but they don't create action. So the action happens in the risk, recognizing there is a risk and I'm going to do it anyway. Yeah. And a lot of times it's a risk to be seen in who you really are, because that person could walk away. That person could then judge you. That person could cut you down. That person could hurt you. That person could take their business away if they really see you. So there's the risk. Then the next 2 pieces, once you start taking the steps and you go forward anyway, you embrace the risk, even though you're terrified. Because the difference between fear and exhilaration is it's a deep breath over and over. Not to the point of hyperventilation, but it's a deep breath. And you go forward anyway, but you hear it still. That voice is still there, like, you're going to die. It's all over. It's okay. Keep walking. And it's still happening. You don't get rid of it. It just isn't in the driver's seat. It's in the passenger. And you're like, I get you. I see you. I hear you, but I'm driving and I'm going to create what I want, which is to take the next step, and the next step, and the next step. And then after that, you have focus and discipline. So you stay focused on what your goal is of getting to the other side, and you have the discipline to just put one foot in front of the other, even though that whole time you're right on the verge of a panic attack.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
Yeah. So that's how you deal with that piece that pops up that feels like it keeps you down. And the voice will tell you, you're always going to be what you've always been. You're still that little girl. You always are going to have to hustle for it. You're always going to have to find more, because it could go away at any time and just disappear. And that's who you are. It will try to tell you you are who you've always been.
Yeah.
The trick is you're not. You get to recreate yourself in every moment, in every conversation, with every new contract you bring on, with every new client you bring on. You get to be who you say you are. That's being. And every moment you get to choose, am I going to let this fear be debilitating? Am I going to be stuck here in this story that has always been my story? Or am I going to recognize I have this thing that these things that have happened and all this stuff that has kept me stuck, and I'm going to go forward anyway. And it means that sometimes I'll fail and it won't work, and it'll feel like I'm back in that place, but I'm not, because I can create it in every moment. And the beautiful thing is you've tasted it before. You've had it. And so you can, it's in those moments that the pieces that keep you going in the focus and the discipline and the risk arena is being curious, being grateful, and being playful with it. Those keep you taking those steps. When those become stronger, when your mission becomes stronger, when your commitments become stronger than the past, than the limiting beliefs, than the judgment of imposter syndrome, just that one piece can shift a lot. If you see imposter syndrome as a possibility rather than a debilitation, you're going to go towards it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what's alive in you right now?
Well, I feel like I'm totally gonna cry.
That's good.
So,
That's the heart of it.
yeah. So I reflect back on a certain moment often, and if I can just share that with you as concisely as I can, because I know I'm taking a lot of time.
That's okay. I want to be clear. We're at our time, but I have a hard stop in 10 minutes, so we can go right up until about 9 minutes, so that I have enough time to jump on the next thing I have.
Okay. So on my 16th birthday, I was living in a homeless shelter, and my birthday is March 16th. And so I was always told by my mother, like my whole life, like that's your sweet 16 and it's your golden birthday. And like becoming 16 is so important and you're so independent and so smart. You're going to get your driver's license right when you turn 16. Like there was all this build up to being 16. Well, so I was 16 on my 16th birthday in this homeless shelter. And I remember my mother called me and she said, I'm going to pick you up and I'm going to take you to dinner and I'm going to take you shopping. I'm going to do all these things for you. And she never showed up. And I remember sitting at this big, huge, long table that was in the dining room of the shelter. And I was, waiting for my mother for a really, really long time. And I remember there were these two thoughts. And one was the realization that she's not coming. And the other was, okay, well, no one's coming to rescue you. You gotta get out of here. Like you have to figure out like how you are gonna make sure that you overcome this. And I feel like one of those two things is like always alive in me, or like always like present. And I feel like right now what I'm feeling and like what's alive in me is like, okay, well, like you got to figure out a way to do this. Like you're capable and it's possible. And like, you can
And
do
you
this.
you don't have to figure out a way. Love has no strategy. Your only purpose is to be you. Just like I'm sure you tell people all the time.
Yeah, that's what I tell people all the time.
Your purpose is to follow what you say, to have high integrity, to love big. And I can already feel that you do.
Yeah.
Your only job is to follow your mission and to get through risk with love and boundaries. That's it. You don't have to try to figure it out. You don't have to do it all on your own, because it doesn't happen all on your own. And that's where you're not able to recreate it, because you double down on trying to control it.
Okay. Yeah. Totally. That makes sense.
And when the fear pops up, that's when you go right back into that space of sitting at that table waiting for her, where those two beliefs were birthed, and you become her. And that little girl will always struggle, always, because that's what that moment was about. It was about struggle, and it was about not trusting, and it was about fear. And I believe that everything boils down to love and fear. And the times that you're alive, that you're alive in the sense of coming from a loving place where things are working out and they're flowing and it's effortless, it's smooth. Like when the woman was sitting in front of you that took you to New York City, was there any trying? Was there any strategy? Was there any control there?
No.
Right. Because you trusted the flow. You were just there to support her and be you.
Yeah.
The thing is, what you're up against is you're doing more of those things, and because you're enjoying what you're doing, that imposter syndrome is popping up a lot. That fear, that moment where you're standing at the edge of that cliff. And so this is the first time where those have overlapped consistently. You're going, I've had these great experiences of being in flow, but I'm also really attached to this thing. I'm liking what I'm doing, and I need to make an income so I can pay my bills. So I've just got to figure this out, because now that the fear has been activated. And what's the response to the fear?
It's a desire to control.
Right.
Yeah, totally.
So what did you just get there?
I think that the desire to control when I'm like activated by fear is something that it feels like it's helpful, but it's not. And I can look back and have reference to the times where controlling the outcome was not my objective. The objective was just connection and authenticity and just doing a thing that came naturally that I knew how to do, and just really appreciated and liked doing in the moment. Like those are the times and are the times that perpetuate actual fulfillment and opportunity and abundance. So
control and trying to over strategize is the great saboteur.
Yeah.
Because it's thought of as that's the answer, when it's not. That's resistance. That's resisting flow of life, because you're afraid and you're frozen in that fear. And it's very, the more you expand in life and the more you evolve, the more subtle that becomes. It's in little moments. It's not a big, someone might not even notice it. You'll notice it, but it'll be in your thoughts. It'll be in who you're being in that moment with yourself. The words may be different that come out of your mouth, but what's happening in here and in here, that's where it's happening. And it's subtle, and it's just identifying those thoughts. So this is the action I want you to take. Every time you notice that fear pop up, and your trigger to think about this is noticing imposter syndrome and noticing that you want to control, that thought process is activating that fear sequence. So I want you to, on a piece of paper, not right now, but this is just your action homework, is on one column, I want you to write, sorry, not on one column. I want you to, in a journal, I want you to write what your fear sequence is, what the predicators are, and the indicators that you're about to jump into that. And it may be your thoughts, it may be a physiological response, like maybe your shoulders go up a little, or maybe your clams get sweaty, your hands get clammy, or maybe your heart starts to race, or maybe your breath gets shallow. Whatever it is, notice what the physiological things are, and you might not notice it until you're in it again next time. So just be really hyper aware of the things that have put you in that space in the last couple months, and watch for those scenarios. So when you're in those scenarios, if it pops up again, okay, I'm in now. And then as soon as you can, write down what that sequence was. Like, first I felt this way, then this happened, then I thought this, then I thought that, and what I wanted to do was X, Y, Z. and start to notice the pattern that you have, because that is the destructive pattern that keeps you in the past.
Okay.
And then when you have a moment where you're really in flow and something great happens and some incredible opportunity happens and pops up, I want you to reflect back. You won't notice it in the moment until the opportunity has happened and that sequence has started. Notice where you were and what you were thinking of and what you were doing, because that's another pattern. Okay. And the idea is you want to start switching the focus into the ones that are the opportunity and the possibility, rather than the ones that keep you stuck in an old story that are disempowering.
Okay. Yeah, that makes total sense.
All right. You ready to wrap up?
I am. Thank you so much. This was great.
You're very welcome. What value did you get from the call?
I mean, I think I could go on for a while about that.
What's one insight you've had?
I think having what I tell other people be told to myself was very helpful. And just realizing that these things that I feel are coming up or that I'm coming up against, like, these are things that I've literally experienced over and over and over and over again for years. And the ways that I was able to like overcome them or work past them or work through them was, rooted in like kind of tenacity and the belief that there's something in me that believes that I am deserving and worthy. And so I've done this before. I think that's kind of like what you really reflected back to me is like, okay, well, you know this and you've done this before. And I think those are the two biggest things that I took from it is like, oh yeah, like I got this, like I've done this before and I know this. So, so thank you.
You're very welcome. Was there anything missing?
I don't think so. I don't think so at all.
What would you like to be appreciated for?
I'd like to be appreciated for telling people or teaching people that who they are is beyond good enough and that they deserve to be seen and heard and experienced.
Who you are, Angela, is beyond perfect. It's beyond enough. I see you and I hear you. And I think first and foremost, I want you to know that I see you and hear you. And I have every confidence that you will go on to imbue that in other people, because that really is the core of your being, which is beautiful.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It was great to be with you. Thank you for being here with me.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time. I appreciate you.
You're very welcome. I will post the video soon and you can download it from YouTube. Are we still good to be able to post it? Or would you like to view it first?
No, you can use it. I trust that you're going to edit it to have it look however it needs to.
I don't edit them much. I just edit like the beginning and the end. So That's pretty much it. So if you're okay with that, I appreciate your bravery so much. And thank you for trusting me in this process. It was great to be with you in the internal world of you.
Yeah, well, thank you. All right, well, I'm excited.
Have a great rest of your day. See you soon.
All right, bye.